We didn't get along. We were four guys. We had rows. It never got in the way of the music, no matter how bad the row was.
Ringo Starr, the beloved drummer of the Beatles, has recently shared some heartbreaking news that sheds light on the complexities of his relationship with the band. This honest revelation underscores the often overlooked struggles behind the legendary harmony of the Beatles, offering a poignant glimpse into the emotional landscape that accompanied their groundbreaking success. Keep calm to listen to his rare revelations. Before we begin, let's acknowledge that the Beatles are celebrated not only for their extraordinary musical achievements, but also for their groundbreaking creativity and enduring cultural impact. Their journey from the smoky clubs of Liverpool to the pinnacle of global stardom is the stuff of legend, a tale of the artistic revolution that transformed popular music forever. Yet, beneath the surface of their meteoric rise, there existed a more complex narrative, one marked by whispers of discord and tension among the band members, fueling speculation about the true nature of their relationships. As the Beatles' fame skyrocketed in the 1960s, so did the scrutiny of their personal lives. Fans and the media alike were fascinated by every aspect of the Fab Four, from their distinctive hairstyles to their rumored internal dynamics. Stories circulated widely about the band's supposed animosity, with some claiming that the members didn't get along at all and even harbored deep-seated hatred for one another. These rumors, often sensationalized, painted a picture of a group on the verge of implosion, with each member pulling in different directions. In an interview reflecting on these tumultuous times, Ringo Starr, the band's drummer and often considered its most affable member, addressed the persistent rumors that plagued the Beatles during their heyday. Ringo, known for his down-to-earth demeanor and dry wit, offered a candid perspective on the subject. He acknowledged that the band was indeed the subject of endless speculation, with stories emerging about almost everything related to them, including their supposed internal strife. However, Ringo was quick to clarify that the reality was far more nuanced than the dramatic headlines suggested. While it was true that the four members, John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo himself, had their disagreements and occasional rows, these conflicts were never as catastrophic as the rumors made them out to be. In fact, Ringo pointed out, such disagreements are a natural part of any close relationship, particularly one as intense and high-pressure as theirs. The Beatles were not just bandmates. They were four young men navigating the extraordinary and often overwhelming experience of unprecedented fame together. However, as the Beatles grew older and their personal lives became more complex, the intense focus and dedication they once poured into their band began to shift. The youthful exuberance and drive that fueled their early years gradually gave way to different priorities. For Ringo Starr, this change was particularly marked by the birth of his children, which naturally led him to devote more time to his family. The demands of fame and the constant grind of the music industry, which had once been exhilarating, began to take a toll. The energy and enthusiasm that had once been directed almost entirely toward their music started to wane. However, despite these shifting dynamics, one constant remained: Paul McCartney's relentless work ethic. Paul, often described as the driving force behind the Beatles during their later years, was instrumental in keeping the band productive. Ringo Starr, who had always appreciated Paul's dedication, would later describe him as the workaholic of the group. While John Lennon and Ringo often preferred to relax or pursue other interests, it was Paul who frequently rallied the others, pushing them to continue making music even when their motivation flagged. His insistence on maintaining a rigorous schedule and his unwavering commitment to the band's success helped ensure that the Beatles remained creatively active, even as personal priorities began to diverge. Ringo, who had been deeply immersed in the music industry since leaving his factory job in 1960, understood the importance of maintaining a balance between work and personal life. For him, music had always been more than just a career. It was a passion that had driven him for years. From his early days playing in Liverpool's clubs, to his time as the drummer for the world's most famous band. Yet Ringo was also acutely aware of the dangers that came with success. He had seen firsthand how many top-tier artists could lose their sense of identity at the peak of their careers, becoming consumed by the pressures and temptations of fame. Despite the overwhelming success they achieved, Ringo believed that he and his bandmates managed to stay grounded. This was due in no small part to their shared background and the mutual support they provided each other. The Beatles were not just a band. They were four individuals who had grown up together, navigating the challenges of fame with a deep sense of camaraderie. Whenever one of them started to act like a big shot, the others would step in to keep things in check. This ability to keep each other grounded was one of the keys to their longevity, both as a band and as individuals. Ringo's reflections on this dynamic were shaped by his own experiences in the music industry. He recalled meeting Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, and feeling a profound sense of pity for him. Despite being surrounded by people, Elvis seemed isolated, trapped in a bubble of fame that separated him from those around him. In contrast, Ringo always had his three bandmates by his side, providing him with the support and companionship he needed to navigate the pressures of stardom. The bond between the Beatles was not just a professional relationship. It was a deep friendship that helped them weather the storms of fame more effectively than many of their contemporaries. Unlike many musicians who spend hours perfecting their craft through practice, Ringo admitted that he had always hated practice sessions. He found them dull and uninspiring, preferring instead to learn by playing alongside other musicians. For Ringo, the thrill of music came alive in the act of playing, in the spontaneous exchange of ideas and rhythms with fellow artists. This approach not only made music more engaging for him, but also laid the foundation for his distinctive drumming style, which would later become a hallmark of the Beatles' sound. Ringo's early musical experiences in Liverpool were crucial in shaping his career. Growing up in a working-class neighborhood, he was surrounded by friends and neighbors who shared his love for music. These informal jam sessions in local clubs and pubs provided Ringo with a hands-on education in drumming. It was in these settings that he developed his natural sense of rhythm and timing, qualities that would later distinguish him from other drummers. The lively music scene in Liverpool, with its mix of rock and roll, skiffle, and rhythm and blues, offered Ringo the perfect environment to hone his skills. His early experiences playing with local bands and musicians not only sharpened his technique, but also taught him the importance of collaboration and adaptability, traits that would serve him well in his future with the Beatles. One of the pivotal moments in Ringo's career came when he made the bold decision to leave Rory Storm and the Hurricanes, a band that was more prominent at the time, to join the Beatles. The Hurricanes were one of Liverpool's leading acts, enjoying a strong following and regular gigs. By all accounts, Ringo's position in the band was secure, and many would have considered it a risky move to leave such a successful group. However, Ringo was drawn to something special in John Lennon, Paul McCartney, and George Harrison. The four had first crossed paths in Germany, where they played at the same club during their early days as struggling musicians. It was here that Ringo first witnessed the dynamic chemistry that existed between John, Paul, and George. He was struck by their energy, creativity, and the unique blend of their personalities. Despite the Hurricanes' success, Ringo felt an undeniable pull towards the Beatles, sensing that they were destined for something greater. While others questioned his decision, Ringo had no hesitation. He saw in the Beatles not just a band, but a group of musicians with whom he could truly connect and grow. Ringo's decision to join the Beatles was one of the most significant risks of his career, but it was also a testament to his instincts as a musician. He recognized that the magic of the Beatles lay in their chemistry, a chemistry that he wanted to be a part of. His early experiences had taught him the value of musical collaboration, and he saw in John, Paul, and George a group of musicians who shared that same ethos. Ringo's entry into the Beatles marked the final piece of the puzzle, solidifying the lineup that would go on to change the course of music history. Once he joined the Beatles, Ringo quickly became an integral part of the band, both musically and personally. His steady, unflashy drumming provided the perfect rhythmic foundation for the Beatles' innovative sound. Despite the pressures and challenges they faced, Ringo remained committed to the music. He understood that the Beatles were more than just a collection of talented individuals. They were a unit, bound together by a shared passion and a deep sense of camaraderie. Ringo was also candid about the internal conflicts that occasionally arose within the band. Like any close-knit group, the Beatles had their share of disagreements and tensions. The intense pressure of fame, coupled with the natural evolution of their individual personalities and ambitions, inevitably led to moments of discord. However, Ringo was quick to underscore that these conflicts never detracted from their musical unity. Despite the rumors of discord that swirled around them, the Beatles' commitment to their music remained unwavering. They were able to set aside their differences when it came time to create, channeling their individual talents into a collective success that was greater than the sum of its parts. Look no further than Ringo Starr, who was able to put aside all the pain of the past, put aside personal differences, and devote himself to the Beatles. You might not know this, while John Lennon, Paul McCartney, and George Harrison each grew up in homes that, though not wealthy, offered a certain level of stability and security, Ringo Starr's early years were marked by more pronounced economic instability. His childhood was spent in the Dingle, a particularly impoverished neighborhood in Liverpool. The Dingle was known for its tiny, decrepit homes, characterized by poor ventilation and an overall squalor that made living conditions harsh. These homes were often overcrowded, with families struggling to make ends meet in a setting that was far from ideal. Marie Maguire Crawford, a childhood neighbor of Starr's, offered a vivid description of the challenging conditions in the Dingle. In Bob Spitz's biography, The Beatles, a biography, she noted that while Starr was not a barefoot, ragged child, his family was deeply entrenched in the ongoing struggle to survive. This struggle was a common thread among the residents of the Dingle, where poverty was pervasive and the daily grind of making a living was a constant reality. The neighborhood itself contributed to the hardships faced by Starr and his family. The air in the Dingle was thick with coal smoke from the numerous chimneys, which polluted the already bleak environment. The only available space for children to play was a local park, which was often affected by the heavy air pollution, further compounding the challenges of growing up in such an area. The park, meant as a respite from the confines of cramped living conditions, was not immune to the grime and smoke that pervaded the neighborhood. Starr's economic struggles were exacerbated by a significant personal hardship, the abandonment of his father when Ringo was just 3 years old. This early abandonment left his mother, Elsie, to raise him alone in a particularly harsh environment. The absence of his father added to the financial and emotional strain on the family, compounding the difficulties of their already precarious situation. However, that's not all. The young Ringo faced a critical health crisis when his appendix ruptured, leading to a severe and dangerous complication known as peritonitis. This condition, an inflammation of the peritoneum, the tissue membrane that lines the abdominal wall and covers the organs, results from the internal infection that follows the rupture. The seriousness of peritonitis cannot be understated. It is a life-threatening condition that demands immediate medical attention, as the infection can quickly spread throughout the abdominal cavity, causing widespread inflammation and potentially leading to sepsis. For Ringo, the rupture of his appendix and subsequent development of peritonitis led to a prolonged and painful hospital stay. Ringo's recovery was anything but straightforward. The young boy was admitted to a Liverpool Children's Hospital, where his healing process extended over several months. The initial optimism of a seemingly promising recovery was abruptly interrupted when, 6 months into his hospital stay, he experienced a setback. In a moment of excitement and overexertion, Ringo fell out of bed, causing all the stitches in his stomach to tear open. This accident necessitated an emergency surgery to address the new damage and required another extensive period of recovery. The total duration of his hospitalization stretched into a full year, far exceeding the typical recovery time for such a condition. The prolonged stay in the hospital had significant repercussions for Ringo's education. He missed an entire year of school, a gap that could have been detrimental to his academic development. However, the resilience and adaptability that would later characterize his music career were evident even in this challenging time. Upon his release from the hospital, Ringo worked diligently to catch up with his classmates. With the assistance of a tutor, he was able to bridge the educational gap caused by his extended absence, demonstrating his determination and ability to overcome obstacles from a young age. But just a few years after enduring a grueling year-long recovery from a ruptured appendix and peritonitis, Starr faced another daunting medical challenge. At the age of 13, he was diagnosed with tuberculosis, a formidable and often deadly disease that attacks the lungs. Tuberculosis, TB in the 1950s, was a grave concern due to the lack of effective treatments at the time. It is a bacterial infection caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis, which primarily affects the lungs, but can also impact other parts of the body. The disease was highly infectious and was often fatal before the advent of modern antibiotics. In areas like Liverpool, where Ringo grew up, tuberculosis was particularly prevalent and posed a significant threat to public health. As Starr later described in an interview with Fresh Air, the conditions in his neighborhood contributed to the high incidence of TB. The disease was so common that it was not unusual to see multiple cases on the same street, with people suffering and dying from it due to the lack of effective medical interventions. The diagnosis of tuberculosis was a severe blow to Starr and his family. At the time, there was no readily available cure, and the disease was often managed with long-term rest and isolation. To combat the illness, doctors recommended a stay at a greenhouse in the country, which was essentially a sanitarium designed to provide a healthier environment for children suffering from TB. These facilities were intended to offer clean air, better nutrition, and a supportive environment to aid in recovery. Ringo's time at the sanitarium was a crucial but difficult period. The facility was located in a rural area, away from the polluted air of Liverpool, providing Starr with a more favorable environment for his lungs to heal. During this time, he was administered streptomycin, a groundbreaking antibiotic that had recently been introduced as a treatment for tuberculosis. Streptomycin was one of the first effective treatments for TB, and its availability marked a significant advancement in the fight against the disease. Despite the promise of this new treatment, Starr's recovery was prolonged. He spent around 2 years at the sanitarium, a lengthy period that had a considerable impact on his education and social development. The extended absence from school meant that Starr missed a substantial amount of his formal education. This disruption was so significant that he ultimately never returned to school, an outcome that likely influenced his later life and career. Indeed, in 1964, when the Beatles were at the height of their global phenomenon, Ringo Starr one more time faced a serious health setback. In June 1964, during a crucial period of their tour, Starr fell ill with both tonsillitis and pharyngitis. Tonsillitis is an inflammation of the tonsils, while pharyngitis involves inflammation of the throat, leading to severe discomfort and pain. The combination of these conditions left Starr bedridden and unable to perform, posing a significant problem for the band. The timing of Starr's illness was particularly inconvenient. The Beatles' first major world tour was set to commence the day after his diagnosis, with the first stop scheduled in Denmark. The prospect of missing the tour was troubling not only for Starr, but also for the entire band, who were now facing the challenge of proceeding without their drummer. In response to the situation, the Beatles' producer George Martin quickly sought a replacement to fill in for Starr. Martin's first suggestion was Jimmy Nicole, a session drummer who would temporarily step into Starr's role. Nicole's appointment was a practical solution. allowing the band to continue their tour without significant disruption. Starr, meanwhile, was confined to bed rest, with strict orders from his doctors to avoid any physical exertion to ensure his recovery. Starr's absence from the tour was marked by a mix of anxiety and self-doubt. In the Beatles anthology, Starr admitted his fears about the situation, revealing that he felt a sense of insecurity about his place in the band. He recalled thinking, "They'd taken Jimmy Nicole, and I thought they didn't love me anymore." This sense of being replaced or less valued was a source of distress for Starr, despite the clear necessity of his temporary substitution due to his illness. Fortunately, Starr's recovery was relatively swift. After 10 days of rest and treatment, he was able to rejoin the band. His return was a welcome relief, both for him and his bandmates. Despite missing several important tour stops in Australia and Asia, Starr's reintegration into the group marked the continuation of the Beatles' historic tour. His return was not just a personal relief, but also a reassurance to the fans who had been eagerly following the band's progress. However, there is a sad truth that throughout the history of the Beatles, Ringo Starr often faced a challenging dynamic with his bandmates and the wider music industry. Despite being an integral part of one of the most famous bands in history, Starr's contributions were sometimes undervalued, leading to periods of personal frustration and professional tension. One notable instance of this tension occurred early in the Beatles' career with their song, "Love Me Do." The track, one of the group's first major hits, was emblematic of the band's burgeoning success. However, it was also a point of contention for Starr. Producer George Martin, who played a crucial role in shaping the Beatles' sound, was dissatisfied with Starr's drumming on the track. As a result, Martin brought in a session drummer named Andy White to record the drums for "Love Me Do" and its B-side, "P.S. I Love You." Starr was relegated to playing tambourine on "Love Me Do" and maracas on "P.S. I Love You." This decision not only sidelined Starr but also highlighted a recurring issue. His role in the band was sometimes overshadowed by the preferences and decisions of others. The situation did not improve much as the Beatles' fame grew. By the late 1960s, the internal dynamics of the band had become increasingly strained. The year 1968 was particularly difficult for Starr. During the recording sessions for the Beatles, commonly known as the White Album, Starr experienced a period of profound discontent. He felt disconnected from the band, perceiving that he was not playing at his best, and that the other three members seemed more cohesive and content without him. In the Beatles anthology, Starr expressed his feelings of alienation, stating, "I felt I wasn't playing great. And I also felt that the other three were really happy, and I was an outsider." The tensions reached a point where Starr decided to leave the band temporarily. During his brief departure, he took his family on a vacation to Sardinia, seeking a respite from the escalating discord within the group. Meanwhile, the remaining Beatles continued working on the album without him. They utilized previously recorded drum parts by Starr and supplemented the tracks with new drumming by Paul McCartney. Notably, McCartney contributed the drumming for "Back in the USSR," which was a significant track on the album. This period underscored the Beatles' adaptability, but also highlighted the difficulties Starr faced in feeling fully integrated and valued within the group. In addition, the breakup of the Beatles in 1970 marked the beginning of a turbulent period for Ringo Starr, one characterized by personal and professional struggles. After the disbandment, Starr faced an overwhelming sense of being absolutely lost, as he expressed in an interview with People. The end of the Beatles, a band that had defined his identity and success, left Starr grappling with a profound sense of uncertainty and disorientation. In the years following the breakup, Starr's solo career struggled to find solid ground. The pressure and stress of navigating this new phase of his life, combined with the absence of the Beatles' support system, contributed to the development of a serious drinking problem. The situation deteriorated progressively, leading to frequent blackouts and a loss of memory about significant events in his life. Starr himself admitted that his drinking problem intensified to the point where he couldn't remember some of his career highlights. As he recounted to the VC reporter, despite having photographs documenting his performances, such as playing with the Beach Boys in Washington, he had no recollection of these events beyond the photographic evidence. The severity of Starr's drinking problem became a significant issue in 1989 when he went to court to prevent the release of an album recorded during a particularly alcohol-fueled period. Starr testified that his consumption reached alarming levels, with him drinking as many as 16 bottles of wine per day. This period of excessive drinking had a profound impact on his personal and professional life, leaving him feeling stuck and unable to break free from the cycle of substance abuse. Starr recognized his problem in the early 1980s, but struggled to seek help immediately. He felt trapped in a professional rut, where his reliance on alcohol seemed intertwined with his ability to perform. As he confessed to Rolling Stone, he was caught in a vicious cycle. "I don't know how you do anything if you're not drunk," he reflected. He felt that sobriety was incompatible with his performance, yet he also acknowledged that being drunk hindered his ability to play effectively. This internal conflict made it challenging for Starr to address his addiction, creating a sense of paralysis in his career and personal life. A pivotal turning point in Starr's battle with alcohol came with the formation of Ringo Starr's all-star band. In 1989, he embarked on a tour with this new project, which played a crucial role in his recovery. The formation of the all-star band provided Starr with a renewed sense of purpose and direction, helping him refocus his energy and rebuild his career. The tour and the associated activities were instrumental in breaking his dependence on alcohol, offering him both a practical and emotional anchor. Ringo Starr's battle with addiction was not only a personal struggle, but also deeply affected those around him, including his second wife, actress Barbara Bach. Starr has openly acknowledged that Bach's descent into addiction was significantly influenced by their shared environment and habits. "She fell into the trap because of me," he confided in People. This admission underscores the extent to which addiction can permeate and impact relationships, particularly when both partners are grappling with similar issues. In their foreword to Getting Sober and Loving It, a book on alcoholism by former Beatles press officer Derek Taylor, Starr and Bach reflected on their tumultuous experiences with addiction. They recounted their long plane journeys, renting lavish villas, and indulging in excessive drinking and drug use. Their lifestyle during this period was marked by extreme behavior, often involving isolation and reckless abandon. The foreword paints a vivid picture of their escapism, describing how they would hide and get deranged in their attempts to manage their addiction, creating a bubble of self-destructive behavior. Bach's daughter, Francesca Gregorini, provided further insight into their lifestyle during this time. Speaking to the Mail on Sunday, Gregorini described the period as the drugs heyday for her mother and Starr. She observed that their routine involved staying at home, drinking heavily, using drugs, and isolating themselves from the outside world. This seclusion and substance abuse marked a significant and troubling phase in their lives, reflecting the profound impact addiction had on their daily existence. The nadir of their addiction-fueled lifestyle occurred in late 1988, as detailed in Andrew Grant Jackson's biography, Still the Greatest. Starr recounted an incident where, after a binge, he found himself in a state of chaos and destruction. "I came to one Friday afternoon and was told by the staff that I'd trashed the house so badly they thought there had been burglars, and I'd trashed Barbara so badly they thought she was dead," Starr said. This harrowing account illustrates the severe consequences of their addiction, not only on their surroundings but also on their well-being and relationships. Recognizing the need for change, Starr and Bach took a significant step in October 1988 by checking into a rehab facility in Tucson, Arizona. This decision marked a pivotal moment in their lives as they sought professional help to address their addiction issues. The move to rehab represented a critical turning point in their journey toward recovery, reflecting their acknowledgement of the severity of their problem and their commitment to seeking help. There is an endless sadness that Ringo Starr never wants to share, which is about the painful death of his daughter, Lee Starkey. Unlike other Beatles children who often found themselves in the limelight, such as Stella McCartney, known for her fashion design, and Julian Lennon, a pop star in the 80s, Lee Starkey initially remained out of the public eye. Instead of pursuing a high-profile career, she operated a retro boutique, reflecting a preference for a more private life. However, Lee's life took a dramatic turn in the fall of 1995 when she faced a significant health crisis. After collapsing and being hospitalized in London, she was diagnosed with a brain tumor. The diagnosis was a severe blow, as the tumor was initially a source of considerable concern. Despite the gravity of the situation, Lee's condition was identified as an ependymoma, a type of brain tumor that is typically curable with proper treatment. Following her diagnosis, Lee Starkey underwent an urgent and intricate medical procedure. She was transferred to Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, where renowned neurosurgeon Dr. Peter Black performed an experimental 4-hour surgery. The operation was a critical step in her treatment, aimed at removing the tumor from her brain. Fortunately, the surgery was successful, and the tumor was completely removed. During this challenging period, Ringo Starr was a steadfast presence by his daughter's side. He stayed with her in Boston for 6 weeks, providing emotional support and helping navigate the medical process. Following the surgery, Lee Starkey underwent daily 8-minute radiation treatments to ensure any residual traces of the tumor were addressed. The combination of surgery and radiation therapy marked a hopeful trajectory for her recovery. Despite the successful initial treatment, the battle was far from over. In 2001, reports surfaced that Lee's tumor had returned, leading to a new round of medical treatments. The recurrence of the tumor was a concerning development, necessitating further intervention and ongoing vigilance from her medical team. The recurrence underscored the unpredictable nature of her condition and the continued need for rigorous treatment and monitoring. What do you think about the tragedies that Ringo Starr went through and what he had to endure in the Beatles? Leave us your comments in the section below. We hope you have found this helpful video. Don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you like it. Thank you for watching this and see you in the next videos. Goodbye.